it's an ongoing Indian, so I'd like to start on the second line on page Kuf Nun Tes quickly. Prior to that, the Rebbe says that oil is AYIN, oil is beetle, whereas Kalim are Yesh. And the oil, by being mislabish in the Kalim, it affects beetle in the Kalim. And the effect of the beetle that the oil gives to the Kalim is a complete beetle. In other words, it is not that the Kalim remain in their mitzias, but their bottle. But they become in the same level of beetle as oil itself. And the Rebbe explains that this union that the Kalim become reach the level of beetle of the oil itself is not only due to the fact that the oil is mislavish in the Kalim. There's another phenomenon there. And the other phenomenon is that of the Kalim themselves. Excuse me. The Kalim themselves have a madriga, have a sense of the Kalim from their own sense, his own being, to recognize the union of Elokus. And where is that cognizance of Elokus come to the Kalim from? How did the Kalim get that kind of cognizance? And the explanation for that is, it is due to the fact that even though the Kalim become Kalim, really worldly receptacles, but their source, they're conceptualized at a level way higher, higher than the oil. This is where Tihira Tator and Tihira Law came in. The oil is rooted in Tihira Tator and lower level of Elokus, and Kalim in Tihira Law in a higher level of Elokus. That itself, we started talking about it a little bit. But with Nebuch and Silv, we will try to get to understand both how come this is so, why the Kalim are so higher than the oil, and the significance of this. How does that reflect itself in the Kalim and in the oil, ultimately?
Which oil are we referring to?
Any oil.
Or Makif and Arpnimi?
Right. Any oil that expresses itself in the form of an oil. Again, we have to recognize that this discussion here is not an imaginary discussion. Which oil do we talking about? What is that? What's the difference? How do you know what's the difference to you? What we are learning here is not about the oil in some kind of a projected level. The reason this is, let me explain a very principal thing, the mental thing. You know there is Kabbalah, and then there is Hasidus. And there's a very principal difference between Kabbalah and Hasidus. Kabbalah speaks about the Inyanim as they are in other reality. Hasidus, its function and its focuses to bring it down to us, to the human being, and ultimately to translate it in our own mind and our heart and our own avodah. Completely different venue.
What's Kabbalah, you say?
Hasidus.
No, what's Kabbalah? What did you say is Kabbalah?
Kabbalah is what you're talking about, someplace in outer world.
And Hasidus is to interpret it down here?
Yes, Hasidus, the purpose of Hasidus is to bring it down into avodah, into life, to the human being. With Hashem.
Mm-hmm.
This is why I'm constantly reminding him, please try to understand it on a personal level. You will find a completely different relationship and a completely different involvement, and your questions will be from a different venue completely.
They won't be technical questions.
And the statement was what? The point that was made was about light was what now?
But we learn Hasidus, not Kabbalah.
No, I'm saying before that before this whole side path started, we were saying that light does what?
That light is makib to hear your law, but I don't know exactly what. We're talking about the way things are lamayla. The unit of Chassidus is, yes, it speaks about things with the lamayla, but ultimately with an eye, with an intent of translating it how it is here by in a human being, in the neshama of a person. This is why we always go back and try to explain the way it is in the Seichel Ha'odom. How is this reflected in us, in our life? This is what it's about. And as we explained many times, that the human being is a reflection of the divine presence in the world. This is why the human being, we are able to go in and understand things the way they are reminded, because they're reflected by us. Our aim is to find how they're reflected by us. Not so much how they are Lamaila, but how they are reflected by us. Because if we understand how reflected by us, then we can translate this in our own avoid, our own lives.
Uh-huh. This is basically about becoming a proper human being.
Becoming an Oved Hashem.
Uh-huh. Right. It includes more than that, more than a proper human being.
Can you explain your question?
Well, a proper human being, not for the sake of being a proper human being, obviously. It doesn't end there. So
My question to you is, why are you asking this question?
to put it in, to make it something that we do something about, not just learn seichel, but actually change.
A proper human being versus to what this is, what's the difference?
A proper human being does what?
You said this is not just me, a proper human being, this is something else. What is the difference?
So a proper human being doesn't have a basis on his own to necessarily act proper in all situations. When it's coming from Hashem, then I'm not doing it because I feel that this is the right thing.
All right. Absolutely, Chassidus is not, Chassidus is involved in bringing us closer to Avodas Hashem rather than to fulfilling our own purposes. All right. All right, as I said, I'm going to start on the second line on page Kuf Nutes. Hine. However, the koyach, the capability, in the kelim, li is bechinas habitl al de ha'oyer. That in the kelim should be effective, the beetle, that is the effect of the oil in the kelim. It is true that in the kelim there is the oil, and ultimately the oil brings out the beetle in the kelim. However, this union that the beetle in the kelim is not merely the fact that there is oil in there, and therefore the oil, and therefore there is beetle because there is oil in it. Rather, it is a beetle of the kelim themselves that is revealed as a result of the oil coming into the kelim. But the beetle itself is part and parcel of the kelim. The question is, how come where's the source of this koyach, of the kelim having beaten? Even though we already know that the beetle in the kelim surfaces as a result of the oil that's in the kelim, but that is only the surfacing, the revealing it. But where is the koyach, to the koyach of the beetle in the kelim themselves? I have to excuse myself for 1 second. I have to stop this fan. However, the koyach in the kelim, that the kelim should have beetle as a result of the oil coming in. But it's not the oil that the beetle is not exclusively part that there is oil in them. But there's a beetle in the kelim itself. But oil is not only the kelim should be built as a result of the oil, but more than that, that the beetle in the kelim should be in such a manner, a beetle of the quality that they say be'etzem mahusam, in their very essential presence, not a beetle that's an add-on to the kelim from the oil, but the kelim themselves should have beetle. Ultimately, that the kelim should unite be'erin soif. How does this come out? Where does this come from? Kelim are worldly creations. How do they come to be misyached with Ein Sof? Ein Sof means mit delikus. Where do the Kelim have this concept altogether? They have beetle because there is oil in them. But they themselves are Kelim, worldly creations. How do they become bottled through and through, that their own mitzias is Elokus? They become Mishacha Beis and Be'erin Sof Baruch. Zehu, that koyach in the kelim is mibechinas hamakib the Tehira. This is from the aspect of the makib of Tehira. Tehira, this is the first time that Tehira is mentioned here. Prior to that, we were talking about Tehira Tator. Tehira Tator means the lower purity. And as we explained originally, that word Tehira means purity. And the inference of the word purity is that it is a direct reflection of the Lakus itself, of the source. That's what's called pure. Pure means it is not something that doesn't go through a process. It's a direct reflection of the source. Oil, as we said before, is a direct reflection of the source in Tehira Tator, of the lower purity. The Tehira Tator, the lower purity, this refers to the Elokus as Elokus is intent on creating the world. Now we're talking about the Kelim. The Kelim, their beetle comes from a different source. This is a makif of Tehira Ilah, of a different level of Tehira, of Elokus. It's called Tehira Ilah. Tehira Ilah means the upper, the higher purity, which means the inner Elokus, as Elokus is unto itself, not as Elokus is intent on creation of the world. But the way the Oyer Elokuti is internal to the Elokus itself. This Makif of the law, this is the Shoyresh of Moker Hakei. This is in fact the root of Kate. Kelim are sourced at a higher level than the oil. Oil, we said, is rooted in Tira Tator. Kelim are sourced in Tira Yilo. In the higher aspect of the divine presence. And thus the beetle of the keli. The principle of beetle we discussed quite extensively. In a nutshell, beetle means self-nullification and being united with its source. The beetle of the keli magia reaches lemailo meha beetle shel ha'oir. It reaches higher than the beetle of the oir. It's an amazing thing. Kelim are creations on the worldly level. Oir is an illumination reflective of and bringing the presence of the Elokus. And yet, when Kelim are brought to their perfection, to their beetle to Elokus, they reach up higher than the oir. Clearly, this will require a lot of insight and very careful, so to speak, soul-searching recognition. It's not enough to know what the Maya is saying. We have to make sense of it internal to our own intelligence. So the beetle of the keli reaches higher than the beetle of the oil. Yesterday, we already touched upon this. And I'd like to review what we said yesterday, so that when we come into this, we will have some basis, some background to reflect on. What we said yesterday was that Rebbe created the world. And ultimately in the world, Rebbe brought light, oir. Initially the world was choshech, was dark. And then, Vayem Elokim hi oir. Clearly, oir is a transformative aspect in the world. World on its own is dark. The Rebbe brought to the world a divine quality that's called oir, the form of light. This was the first day of creation. Subsequently, several days later, on the fourth day, the Rebbe created the luminaries, the sun and the moon, which are also bringing forth light. But since the world already has light, so what is the significance of the luminaries being created? And actually, even a deeper question. The luminaries are physical bodies. The oil that was created in the first day is a divine light. So it seems that we're going backwards. From oil shenibra b'im rishon, which is super worldly, to a world of light. So we explained that in terms of the world itself, in terms of the reality of the world, what kind of creation is the world? Is the world a real presence? So we said that yes, indeed, the first day the world had light, but that light didn't belong to the world. Didn't make sense. The world couldn't make sense of it. It didn't really belong to it. On the fourth day, the Rebbe created the luminaries, which are made of worldly material. And this worldly material now became the source of light for the world, which means the world cannot produce its own light.
Time check, 10:02.
Wow. Are you sure your time it doesn't run fast?
I have 5 minutes left. 45
clock-
right now, buddy.
This clock's 5 minutes fast?
Yeah, it is.
Okay, I thought it might be a little off. But anyway, Shmuley, you'll give the 10 minutes to reminder?
Complete
Why
there.
you going?
Okay.
It's 8:45.
Yeah, we're talking about how the world now has its own source of light. Okay.
This is the yin that you have decayed. This is the sun and the moon, like a muscle to understand what we're learning here. In the first day, there was light, pure light. In the fourth day, there was light coming from the sun. So you would say that this is a fall off, a loss in the world. The first day, the world had the divine light, and the fourth day, they had a worldly light. So we're explaining that in terms of the perfection of the world, of being a real creation, the fourth day is what made the world a real world. It had its luminaries. Luminaries are these bodies, physical bodies, that actually produce light. the world has now its own resource for life. This raises the world to a real creation that it is self-standing. It can produce its own light. This is the process of creation. Ultimately, is to bring to the creation a full-fledged presence. I've said one time before, Hashem does not create half-mast creatures. Thank you, Rafi. Hashem's creations are complete, are real. When the world had a light that is super worldly, it didn't belong to the world. So the world could not really relate to it. On the fourth day, the Rebbe made light from the world itself. That is a completely different sense of reality in the world. This is the Indian that we're learning now. That the Keli are sourced higher than the oil. The oil is sourced in Tirat Tato, and the Kelim are sourced in Tehira Ilah. And thus, the beetle in the Keli, the sense of beetle in the Keli. What is the sense of beetle? Sense of beetle is the sense of the divine presence. The sense of divine presence in the Keli, Magia, this is on the end of the fourth line, L'mayl ma'beetle shel ha'oyer, reaches higher than the beetle of the oyer. Even though the oyer represents a divine light. It's a divine light that illuminates the world.
Time check.
What does that mean?
It's just about 10:02. And we have a question on the WhatsApp
Okay.
by
Okay,
Baruch.
let me just finish the sentence.
Mm-hmm.
And beetle of the Keli reaches higher than the beetle of the oyer, which is left to be discussed next time it's Shem. But in principle, it means that the Keli is reflective of divine presence in the world from a higher source than divine presence that is brought to the world through the oyer.
Questions are okay now?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, I think this is a different way of putting the question I had last time. But anyway, Tiara Ilah, we're saying, is the purity, divine purity, the way it is for Hashem himself, for God himself. It has nothing to do with world at all, right?
Right.
So if that's true, why would there be a need for even Shirish, a Kalim, over there at a level where the only existence or possible existence is God himself? What does he need with Kalim?
No, clearly, this is for creation.
But the creation is not even Teifus Mokum as a concept in Tiara Ilah. That's Tiara Tita, that's Adam Kadma. We've been saying that the divine purity at the higher level is completely without reference to world creation or anything.
No, that's not true.
Okay, So I
That's
need to
not
have.
true. This is your own
Okay.
words.
All right.
No,
I take them back.
everything is intent on the creation. You say
Everything.
this, everything. When you say talking about the source of creation, the Shele Shemoket HaKelim, which means where the Kelim are conceptualized. Why are they conceptualized there? They conceptualized there because the principle of creation is already conceptualized there.
So I'm getting confused then, but as between the distinction between tiaru ilah and tiaru tata, because I thought that we have always been saying that the tata level, which is Adam Kadmain, this is the beginning of creation, even at a conceptual level. At a conceptual level, it's not real yet; it's still conceptual. But tiaru ilah was far beyond that. It wasn't anything to do with creation. The way you've used words you've used, I can't get the exact words, but I think it's something like, this is the divine purity for he himself.
Oh, okay,
Inner directed, not outer directed.
okay.
Is that correct?
Yes, but you have to understand, as I said, we have to refine our thinking here. Yes, indeed. The principle is Tehiru, whether it's Tehiru Tato or Tehiru Law, is speaking about the world on the conceptual level, the way it is in the divine level.
I can't believe you don't make this up. Yeah.
This conceptualization of world, it surfaces on the Tehiru Tato level. This is where you see, yes, indeed, there is an intentful world.
This is Adam Kadmon.
Right. But then, we have to understand that, yes, indeed, it surfaces at that level. But this is not where it originates all the way from its real source. Its origin is internal to the divine truth itself.
May I ask a clarifying question?
One second. I want to give a motion for this. Every human being, Baruch Hashem, a healthy human being, has the divine blessing of procreation. As a healthy human being, every human being has that koyach, that bracha from the Meibus. That koyach is part of the gift to human being.
Rabbi Paltiel, you're breaking up, at least for me. I can't really hear you.
No kidding.
Am I the only one having this problem?
No, you're not the only one. Let's try to say it again, please, if it's possible.
Pruravu, you said, is part of the gift of the Eibishter to the human being.
To the human being. And the human being is complemented to be a real presence in the world as a result of Pruravu. So my question that to explain the that we're learning is the human being possesses that capability. And that is what makes him a full-fledged presence in the world. Then, with Hashem's help, he actually has a child. He's blessed with a child. Now this child has come forth separate from him. It's an entity. He's an entity in the world. Now he stands separate from him. Is this a kind of a reduction of his reality in the world? Because now that capability is now outside of him? Or is this something, on the contrary, complementing his presence in the world?
It's surely complementing his presence.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Okay, but that doesn't, just because I can answer that question doesn't mean I understand the nimshal we're talking about.
The nimshal is exactly the same thing. There is the oil is the way they conceptualize the mind. In Kalim is where this concept is actualized. This is where it's brought down to a real mitzvah in the world.
But there's no mitzvahs yet in the Tiro Ilah. There's no mitzvahs of anything there.
Well, this is what we're saying. The Tiro Ilah is the source for the creation. And the Tiro Ilah is the source for the Kalim, not for the oil, but to the Kalim themselves. In other words, this is where the Kalim is where the real Koyach Elokי to create is identified.
So how does this go, again, with this distinction between for himself and for the outside? It's like when a person has an idea, the idea to begin with is only for himself, and then he gives it over to a Zulus. That's a completely different thing. He was never thinking to begin with to give this idea over to a Zulus. He had this idea. Who says that he needs to even have a Zulus over there at all in order to have this idea? The idea is his, it's for him. And now there's a Zulus, so he's going to give it over. So I had understood that Tihiru Ilah was like the idea coming to the person, which he himself is appreciating and enjoying, has nothing to do with where this idea is going to a Zulus or not.
Okay, all right. And here's where we need to.
Does that make sense?
No, it makes sense that this is the way you thought.
Right,
but it's not identified the truth.
Okay, good. All right.
Any idea that you have, even if you have an idea to yourself, your greatest urge, desire is to reveal this idea and to have other people agree with you, understand this idea.
And that's the same.
Hold on. No, finish, Rabbi Paltiel. Let Rabbi finish.
When ultimately you're able to analyze and define the idea with such clarity that you can actually transmit it to others, this is where it becomes real to you. This is what the Gemara says. I learned a lot from my teachers. I learned more than from my teachers. The Gemara.
It's a Pirkei Avos.
I learned from more than from all the others. What does it mean? Talmid Yosef Bekulam. Who is Talmidim? Talmidim, you are the one who imposes, who gives them their knowledge. How is it from Talmid Yosef Bekulam? With Talmid Yosef Bekulam is because by Talmidai I had to find and identify the thought to such a degree that I can give it over to the Talmud. This is the greatest level of Gilui of the idea.
And this is already conceptualized from the very beginning.
That's right. This exists. Yes, it's conceptualized from the very beginning, but not fully identified. The Talmidim are the ones who bring it out in full identification.
And we're saying that fits with the Nimshal. That's the same by the Nimshal. Is that correct?
Yes.
That's weird.
Why is it weird?
Because it's understandable how it works in the mashal, that things getting actualized gives something to the mashpia, but by the nimshal, you usually have a sense that all is complete. There's nothing to be added by making a world or having...
All right. Let me explain to you. The reason you think that, please understand, is this is very common. We associate the teachers in the idea that Mashpia is Mashpia with his personal, so to speak, aggrandizement. He has not accomplished something. Oh, he is a real, he gets covered for it. But this is not what the Mashpia is.
Right, I wasn't thinking about the respect that's garnered. I was thinking more in terms of the actualization of the seichel is very, very satisfying. Masha'en can seemingly not the case.
Wait a second. Satisfying is a misnomer. It is not, so to speak, reciprocal, going back to himself that he's enjoying it. He's actually creating something. And to create something, you have to have such a source that is real. You can't create anything from an idea.
One more time. Something gets created by the Rav and Talmud. There's a reciprocity, but there's a creation that's new. New reality is born.
That's right.
And
this new reality is a different force than the idea itself.
Okay, good. And then you went on to say, for that to happen, there has to be something real.
That's right. In other words, let me put it to you, as you're thinking about it. Any idea that a mashpia, a teacher, a high-level thinker, so to speak, conceptualizes and ultimately bring it down, is sourced in his own truth. It is not something that comes to him because he has to teach something. So he figures out what to teach. It has to be a truth within himself. And if it is not a truth within himself, if he is only formulating a teaching method, a teaching aspect, then the whole thing has an emptiness to it.
Okay, good. So it's not a transmission of information. The teacher is unified with the message, let's put it this way, and therefore a new reality is created. Fine. So
One second.
Yeah.
One more that you didn't say. It is true to the teacher before he teaches it.
It's true to him before he teaches it. Okay. So Mitalmidai Yoser Mikulam is now because even though it was true to him from the outset, now it is born into reality. New reality is sort
now
of.
he recognizes his own truth.
Whoa! What happened there? Why? The truth was by him at the outset. So what happened?
Yeah, it was there, but he didn't see it.
Yeah, right. Fine. So it was kind of nascent.
I learned from a Talmidi
Fine,
because
so
they drew it out to me. They revealed it out.
Okay, so fine. So it was like nascent. It was just the potential, and now it gets born out by working with the Talmud. And so what? Back to the Nimshal. So too here, God is kind of we're partnering with God to give birth to a new reality, something like this.
Yes.
Okay.
The koyach, just to put it straight out, the koyach of procreation in a human being is a divine koyach, which is called reflective of the koyach Ein Sof.
Okay, right, but we the Nimshal had to do with these sort of two levels of purity, and the original topic was seemingly the highest level is sort of just unto itself, and we
Highest level is where it is true to itself, and from this truth surfaces eventually a real presence in the world.
Okay, good. So what's the role of the second level then? Seemingly that's everything, that highest level. What's the second level even doing?
What second level are you talking about?
I don't know, there was Te'ira, Ilah, Tata.
Te'ira Tata is the lower level.
Namely what?
This is what oil, but the idea as such is identified. Is where the Kalim are identified. Where it makes it actually actualization.
Translation, on the human side of ourselves, our brother live like for God. Live like for us. Just follow God's rules.
Okay, so that was that last statement, right? So the higher level is where the Kalim are identified, and the lower level is where the Or is identified.
Yeah. We went into this Mishalim and all that to be able to understand this principle that Rebbe is saying, that the Kalim are sourced higher than the oil, which is an oddity in our mind.
We went from talking about the Rav and Talmud to higher and lower. Why did we throw Kalim into the? Why did Kalim suddenly appear in the Tiri law? How did that follow from what we'd said before?
This is what we started talking about, the Kalim. That's what we were talking in Maimar about.
I know, but how's it fitting? How's it fitting with our discussion, our development of the Rav and Talmud and?
Well, this was the means to understand where do you see that the Kalim have something superior to the Oyer?
It was mentioned before, but she is about, just recently about Tamid Yosef Mekilam. And Baruch said it's in Pekuovis. I looked and Google said it's in the Gemara in Malchus.
Thank you, Rabbi Google. So, okay.
1 second. Oh, you want to ask? Okay, continue.
No, go ahead.
I want to ask, it's after the Shi, it might be a Kabbalah question. Where does it say in the Maimer that the oil is sourced in Tehira Tetor?
Or where before?
That's Kabbalah question.
That even the oil Makav is sourced in Tehira Eloah. I was trying to look for it. I didn't see it.
Now what?
I was trying to look for it, that even oil Makav is sourced in Tehira Eloah.
No, Tehira Tator.
I mean Tehira Tetor. Where does it say that oil Makav is sourced in Tehira Tetor? Oil Panimi, but not oil Makav.
I'll have to find it. This is where we started learning the whole thing about Tehira law, Tehira Tator.
Saying because Tehira Tata is in our Makif.
Yeah.
Our Makif is rooted in Tehira Tata, but Tehira Tata is in our Makif.
Okay.
So
I'm still sorry. When we were discussing Rav and Talmud and how they sort of work together and something new is born. By the Nimshal, I'm still stuck with the fact that seemingly we're not, I mean, it sort of indicates maybe even like a deficiency above, because he sort of depends on us to do our thing. I mean, I guess we kind of say this somewhere in Torah that we make God.
I'm saying you're losing me.
Okay.
Collect your thoughts and give it direct.
Again, by the mashal, it seems like there's a reciprocity and there's a new reality born. Fine, and the Rav is sort of active, and this Talmud's active in creating a new reality. So by the Nimshal,
reciprocity is, in our view, this is not what it's about.
Well, it is kind of what it's about, because they both exert themselves, and there's a partnership that's created. I mean, if the Rav wasn't
no, you misunderstood. It's not, the reciprocity is not the word for it. This whole partnership has the effect of bringing out the deeper truth.
Right.
From its source, not from reciprocity.
It brings it right. Okay, so they're both. It's like mining. They're both participating in revealing a real truth.
Okay.
Yeah?
Yes.
Fine. So by the Nimshal, God is like needing us to, or wants us to partner with Him to reveal a higher truth, I suppose. It indicates a level of sort of needing us to do something.
The kalim are sourced higher than the oil.
Okay, good. That's the main point. But
The
that's
principle that there is a divine creation of oil and divine creation of kalim. Divine creation of kalim is a superior source in the divine source itself than the oil.
okay. Good. That's from inside, and I get that that's the principle we're illustrating here. But I'm just not hearing how the Rav and Talmud corresponds to this kalim are rooted higher than the or.
You know something? That's not important. That was only used as a mushal. And if they don't see that as a mushal, it's no point. This was a mushal in order to help us understand it.
I know, but I'm not. Okay, good. But I'm not getting any. Okay, I'm just not getting a great sense of how the kalim are rooted higher than
that's what
or.
I said before the onset. We have to search our own mind before we go into this. You have to search your mind a little bit more, and you'll find it.
Okay. And yesterday's guests at the wedding feast, that was illustrating this, right?
Okay, you have to remind everybody what this is about.
You had the individual guests at the feast getting served rather than buffet, and that was or again, the second mashal on this topic was Shabbos meal.
No, wait a second. Stop. Finish one. Finish this.
So that one and the other one indicated that it was used to illustrate this point that the keli is rooted higher than the or.
So how is it? Finish it.
Well, I think that's what I'm struggling with. I'm trying to revisit.
Oh, you're struggling with it. Okay.
That
should be quite obvious. That should be quite obvious. They put up, I said, they put up a smorgasbord, and there's food galore, and everybody can approach it. And the question is, when, and then there is the individual portion that is served to you at your table. When is the message of the feast and the host more expressed to you? At the individual service or at the smorgasbord?
Right, we said by the individual service, and then we said that's because for some reason,
even though it's a very limited, finite gift, gives you one portion.
Right.
And yet, this focus to this limited action brings out a deeper relationship to you from the host than the opening up a complete feast.
Right. Okay. It's just quite strange that it works that way, but yeah, we had this illustration. It's just quite strange that it's not. I don't have a real sense of why it works that way, or maybe it's impossible.
One second. Okay, that's legitimate, but you do see that it works that way, right? That's the first thing.
I mean, right. I mean, Asida does work that way, and especially the mashal by Shabbos was even more so.
Okay. So I'm saying, and you see that it works that way. Now you want to understand how come it works that way. Okay. This is why we have Mishalim. This is why we talk over and over again. This is what the Maimon is talking about. This is why you need Mishalim, because it is not that readily understood. Yeah, just 1 second. Just 1 second. I'm sorry. Yeah, let me just finish this challenge over here. I'll have to go back and speak about a completely different and the same topic, but at a different level.
Okay, and this is again illustrating how Kalim are rooted higher, right? That's what the topic
That's
is.
right. And what I'm reaching up to now is what's called Yesh Mei Ayin. And we know, the Rebbe says clearly, Yesh Mei Ayin is a unique capability of a Moshe Hashem himself. No other Madrege, this is not in Oyer, this is not in Canaan. This is Hashem himself is only is the only one, the only level that's capable to create Yesh Mei Ayin. What is Yesh Mei Ayin? What's unique about Yesh Mei Ayin? Yesh Mei Ayin means something from nothing, which means that this thing that's created stands completely on its own, without a source. It is completely self-justifying, self-complementing.
All right. Right. And that's a more that's a higher inyan than
That's a
any
higher
emanation.
thing. That's right. Higher than even Kalim, but certainly not Oyer.
Yeah, because only some kind of essence could make something that is so self-asserting.
That's right. You can use any terminology you want. Self-asserting, self-iman.
Right. Okay. Sure.
Just to go back. It was
Shlomo,
like,
just 1 second, Shlomo. I compliment you and I thank you for your patience. Thank you very much. Okay.
Thanks, Shlomo.
it was really more important than my question, but I'm looking over again in the Maimer. It says that never says that the Makev is entailed to the oil Makev. It says that the Kaile, the Shoyrische Kaile, me beginnen oil Makev dafke. And it goes along that whole line, and never says that the oil Makev is from Tira to Torah.
Shreira Shumokir Akelim is from the Makev of Tehira Yilo. What you're referring to?
Yes.
What do you mean, yes?
But
You just said the
that the
opposite.
Shoyrish, 1 second. The Shoyrish of Kailem is from the oil Makev. It says previously.
No, it's Oil Makev the Tehira Yilo, a higher Makev.
It says the Shoyrish Kailem is an oil Makev dafke. And it goes on to say the Kaile is a Gila, the Shoshim oil Makev. In Fizeh Shlem, the Koich Habit, Shalakailem oil Makev, me beginnen te wiegen la Gudel. And, but it never says that the oil Makev is from Tira to Torah.
Yeah, I was going to ask the same question and ask how do you relate it to what you said about the mashpia?
1 second. Let's read together. I know why I see different words than you do. Let's
Starting
read
starting
from
where?
the third line
Start
on page
from it's not difficult. We could just touch the Werter from Oy Samach Bais. Let's learn the Mimer inside.
No, that's too late. And 3 lines from the top of Kuf Nun Tes.
Because they have a
Habito,
start.
3 lines. The third line, Shabitli Beben Kozeh begins Bitl Be'etzem Mahusa. And Bitl in the Kalim, I'm just
Yeah, but
filling
I'm
in.
speaking from before. Okay.
Wait.
One second. When you ask a question, we'll go straight to the answer. Bitl Beben Kozeh begins Bitl Be'etzem Mahusa. And the Kalim should have a Bitl Be'etzem Mahusa. What is Bitl Be'etzem Mahusa means? Is Yahdo Be'etzem Mahusa. Now the Kalim should be able to be Shachet between his. How do the Kalim, this is what Rebbe is saying, how do Kalim have that capability of being beetle to the extent of Misach being so? Zehu, now the end of the third line, Zehu, that kind of beetle, Mibchinas Hamakib the Tirilo. This kind of beetle, the Kalim have from Hamakib the Tirilo. Next words, Sheila Shumokin HaKalim.
I know, but I'm saying from Oy Samach Bais, the Rebbe start with this whole thing, and the Rebbe said that Shoyrish of Kailam is from the Oy Makev Tafke, and he goes around with there. He never said that the Oy Makev is from Tira to Tua.
Okay, this. Let's start from the beginning of summer base, right in the beginning.
Yeah.
Kol Zeh B'Makib Di'ak. The Mikolim Kin Yesh L'Shachas Elo Eilomis. Hagam Shu Mechinas Makib B'Rochik. Nonetheless, it has a Shachas Elo Eilomis. The Akinim Shu Misham HaOrel B'Kil Mishams. Abo B'Chinas Tehiri Lo. Right? So, till now, we're not talking about Tehiri Lo.
Okay, but now we're starting talking about Tira Lo. Okay, no. Okay.
Till now, we're not talking about Tehiri Lo.
Fine. But now we're talking about Tira Lo. Let's see what Rebbe says about Tira Lo.
But Makib Di'ak is here at all.
We're not speaking about Makib. Let's see what Rebbe says about Tira Lo. Abachen is Tira Lo.
One second. Didn't I answer your question? I don't understand why you're going back.
The Rebbe says in the comment lines that there is Makib, or the Makib is in Tiri Lo.
No, Makib the Ak.
No, Makib, Oir Makib. The Rebbe says Oir Makib is in Tiri Lo.
Oir Makib the Ak. There's different level
Makib,
different level Makifim. One second. What are you being so stubborn about? We just learned. I showed you inside.
Okay, but the Mama has a continuation.
What?
But I'm not saying what we said before. I'm saying what's coming.
That's okay. That's a different thing. That's not what we're talking till now.
But the Rebbe is
that's a new thing. That is a new level.
But the Rebbe says clearly that the Oir Makev is in. Doesn't say that it's not. The Shoyrische Kailam, the Rebbe keeps on saying, is in Oir Makev Davke.
I don't know what you're parking
I'm saying what the Rebbe is saying.
You're not saying what the Rebbe is saying. I'm getting straight from the word.
Let's read it to this continuing. Why are we stopping?
Abo Bechinas Tirei means the word Abo Bechinas Tirei doesn't mean that this is continuing for, but before or this is a new thing.
A new thing.
A new thing.
Yes.
But up until now, we're talking about Makib Diak, also Makib, and we're talking about Hiratato.
But now it's not talking about Hiratato.
That's right. It's a new thing.
A new thing. So this is what Rebbe is saying, that the Oir Makib is not Hiratato.
The other
Let's
is
see
also
what the Rebbe says. Let's see what the Rebbe says. Avo. That's what I'm saying.
No. It's a different level. The other is also a Makif.
But what?
Till now, look at the first words on summer base. Makif Diak. Look at the words.
No.
You want to look? So don't look. That's up to you.
I'm looking what's contained, the whole thing, not just one line.
Not the whole thing. Yeah, the whole thing you have to learn in order. Avoli begins a new thing.
Fine. Let's say what the new thing is.
Okay, that does not negate what we learn too.
The Rebbe Makiv Dak is not Oir Makiv. We're speaking now about Oir
It's not
Makiv.
Oir Makiv. Makiv
No.
Yak is not Oir Makiv.
Not what the Rebbe is speaking inside.
One second. Peter, I'm closing the book. I don't want to talk to you anymore. Look inside the Beinu Shalom. Makiv Yak. It's the Shachas of Hoyolomis. Tiri law is a different level completely.
But he's including there the Kailam. And Oir Makiv.
He begins a new Indian. And
Yeah,
we have to learn it, and we have to learn it appropriately.
But the Rebbe is saying that the Kailam is rooted in Tehirei Lua, but the Rebbe is continuing here saying that this is Oir Makiv.
Good, but Makiv Diak is also Makiv.
So what was said now that the Oir is in Tehirei Tetua. So I was trying to say where there's Oir Makiv, there's the Rebbe that from this Ava Bechenes Tehirei Lua, we see that the Rebbe is saying that the Oir Makiv is in Tehirei Lua. Even the Oir.
There is both. There is oil from coming to the law, and there's oil coming to the Torah.
Okay, but it was like emphasized in the sheet today that oil comes from Tira Tetua and Kailam comes from Tira Lua. And I was bothered by it.
Oh, that's what you're bothered about. Oh, okay. Okay. Now I see what you're bothered.
Me too. You asked my Kabbalah question.
Beinu Shalom. In general, it is true that there is oil that is sourced in Tira law. But oil, as it ultimately is revealed in the world, is an aspect of Tira Tato. Even though this is also oil, and it also has source in Tira law, but the way the oil reveals itself in the world, it's an aspect of Tira Tato. Why do we say that it's an aspect of Tira Tato? And this is where we will find, pin down the difference between Oiris and Kelim. Oir comes to the world, and the world is able to understand the Oir. In order for the world to be able to understand it, it has to be from Tirat HaTorah. It has to be something that has a worldly relationship. Kelim, this is where we have to understand contradictory statements. Kelim become part of the world, mamash. Despite the fact that they become part of the world, they're really representative in the world, not of a higher than worldly presence. Kelim are representative in the world of the creator, not of the creation. Of the Hiri law aspect, of a super presence. The oil, as it comes into the world, it can relate to the world and becomes worldly. Kelim, also, you would say, also become worldly, but the kelim does not become worldly. They are in the world and they build it back to the world, they don't become worldly. What does that mean, they don't become worldly? The presence of kelim, just like the presence of Yesh Me'ayin is the greatest thing in the world, the deepest thing in the world. No matter how long Yesh Me'ayin is present in the world, it remains always a miracle. The world does not understand where that comes from. It remains Me'ayin, it remains higher than world, even though it comes into the world. This is the principle that I was explaining. Kelim are sourced in Oir Makib, and that's what they represent as kelim. They don't become, they come into the world, right? It's kelim. But the world does not really understand what they're coming from. Oil becomes part of, readily understandable from a worldly perspective. Kelim are not.
The Rebbe uses the words "Vabittel shalakaila magia lamaila ma'abittel shaloyer."
That's right. That's right. The bittul to the kelim, even though this is kelim and mitzias in the world, but they are alluding to, they're referring to something which is much higher than oil, because this is yesh me'ayin. Little kelim is yesh me'ayin. Yesh me'ayin, there's no greater representation of higher than world than yesh me'ayin. Even though it's in the world.
I would understand that we could see a bigger revelation of Elokus and the Yesh, but why would we say that the Bittel is more? The Yesh is a Yesh. He doesn't show himself as being better.
Oh, okay. Okay. So here's the principle of the bittul of the kelim. Bittul of the kelim is the pshat say. The kelim is here. Yesh is a yesh. As the yesh is a yesh, it says, I don't know where I come from. I don't make sense. In other words, it has an inherent bittul, to the extent that no matter how much it is real, it never becomes self-justifying. Oil can become self-justifying at a certain point. Kalim cannot.
Okay. Thank you.
Baruch Hashem, Baruch Hashem.
Boaz
I wish we could
Besifu.
shake hands. We can't shake it in Corona. Doesn't allow us to shake hands.
Boaz Besifu.
Shkoyach.
Shabbos.
Have a good
Good
Shabbos.